Welcome here to the Ridealong channel today on a lovely windy afternoon here in Vassiliki. I'm actually pretty powered up just now on a 5.9 Spy and 133 litre Carve. So some nice all-round free ride kit that I'll be happily coaching intermediates and advanced guys on. Anything really from getting into the straps up to planing out of some Carve jives. And where I'm really quite powered up just now, it begs the question, when and why should we start moving on to smaller boards? And I'm focusing really on boards just now rather than sails. At what point is this 133 and a 5.9, woo, at full speed like I am just now, when does that become too much? What is too much? Now I think I should start by saying that it's kind of subjective and it's kind of down to you as a rider what you think is a large board or a small board. And that's where that term sinker has kind of gone out the window as the modern kit starts to come in. Nothing's a sinker anymore, they just gradually start to lose literage and get smaller. And you might be watching this thinking, oh, 133, that'll be the dream. I'm looking forward to getting something as small as that. And others will be watching that going, 133, that's enormous, that's like sailing a barge. Similar with sail sizes. Your sailing area might be somewhere that's nowhere near as windy as what I'm in just now, and 5.9 sounds like a distant dream because you're used to sailing 6, 7, 8, 9 metre sails. And I think that's quite a key bit to start with, is the conditions you're in play a huge part as to what is big or small kit. And right now it's definitely not flat, but it's not really that bumpy or choppy. I mean, it kind of is choppy, but it's not that bad at all. If it started to get choppier, this board would start getting wind underneath the windward edge, and I really wouldn't be able to hold it into the ground anymore. And that would be a good indicator that I need something a bit smaller. There is something I see a lot around windsurfing beaches, this sort of, I want to say, attitude that you're judged by how big or small your board is. And if your board is above X number of litres, then you're no good. If it's below X number of litres, then you're good. And I want to put that out the window, I want to put that to bed and say, no, that's not the case at all. What I want to do with my students and the guys that I'm coaching out here is build some solid foundations that we can then start building on top of. And a lot of the time, in order to get onto smaller, more playful, more reactive kit, we need to have solid footwork, solid awareness of the wind and where my body should be, where the sails should be, where my feet should be on the board, before I start trying to do it on, let's say, sub-100 litre boards. Because those small boards, when they start getting smaller, they become sensitive. They become reactive and responsive to the slightest little bit of heel pressure, toe pressure, front or back foot. And if you're not ready for that, you're not sure what it's going to do, that can be really, really hard to control. You know, if you're just getting the grips of stepping back and into the foot straps, but the board constantly spinning up into the wind and you're falling in backwards, it's a good indicator. It's probably not the time to be going for a smaller board, because that smaller board is going to make that even harder to do. But if you're getting the hang of it and you're like, you know what, I'm doing all right in the foot straps, or maybe I'm not quite in the foot straps, but I am going along in a straight line with a reasonable bit of speed quite nicely, I can move around a bit and I can control the board with my feet without it just losing control. Then that's quite a good time to think, well, if it's not spinning out of control, I'm not steering by accident where the board wants to go, then it's probably a good time to start thinking about stepping down literage. This might be a broad statement just now, but to a certain level, the bigger the board is, the easier it's going to be to get into the foot straps, to get the board going at speed and planing. And also, to a certain level, it's going to be easier to go round jives and stay on the plane. A larger board will sit slightly higher in the water. Therefore, the slightest bit of power, and the board is already up and onto the plane. This is kind of choppy, look. You see me coming past the other camera there. It's definitely not flat, but 133 litre board, 5'9", nicely powered up, rather than flapping around out of control. So just now, yes, I could happily be on a sub 100 litre board, but is there any need? Definitely making these jives and the tacks easy. It's also going to make your water starts easier. The board's not spinning up and into the wind. I mentioned about it being subjective to you and your area, your conditions. It's also subjective down to our physical body type. How do I put this politely? A larger car will need a larger engine. So right now, me really nicely powered up on a 5'9", weighing maybe 80 odd kilograms, possibly just under if I've lost a bit of weight that week. But someone weighing 90 or 100 is going to need another meter on top of that. And it's the same with the board size. That larger car, of course, weighs more. So if I've got an extra 10 kilograms, you can roughly think you're going to need an extra 10 litres of buoyancy to hold that up. So me on a 133, perhaps someone of similar ability, but weighing 10 kilograms or more, would actually want a 144. Possibly. And that's where there is some like maths that we can work out. This is how many litres, this is how much you weigh, this is how much you weigh wearing a wetsuit and a harness. Add on a few kilograms for your sail, and that will hit what's called neutral buoyancy. So for me at 80, around 85 would be neutral buoyancy for me. Maybe just a little bit more, so that should be my kind of benchmark go-to. But then if I'm riding waves, I'm going to want to lose 10 to 15 litres of that board to make it manoeuvrable, fun, responsive and playful. Or if I'm going free riding and it's lighter winds, I'm going to add 10, 15, even in this case, 40 litres to make it more forgiving, to make it easier to do whatever it is I might want to be doing. No space for a jive here. Bring it up and around attack. The big technique point I would give you as you start to get better with your windsurfing and you are moving on to newer, smaller boards and getting used to the wobbliness, the new balance and the new responsiveness of it is under your foot, is always keep your head up, looking for that wind, looking towards where you want to go, rather than looking at that nice fancy board under your feet. Eyes up, chin on your leading shoulder, and smell the wind. And when it comes to not just getting going and blasting like I am now, but the same going around tacks, jives and other maneuvers, counterbalance. Keep that rig away from you, opposing the forces of that rig. As soon as you pull the rig in close, you start losing all kinds of control. And your trim, your footwork, as you get smaller, you need to remind yourself of the center line of the board. Where is the middle of the board? Your footwork needs to be a lot more accurate as you're going around tacks and jives and just getting the board in a straight line as you start to get on smaller boards. On this larger 130 litre board, I can kind of get away with wherever I want to stand. Like I said earlier, it's more forgiving and generally easier to do stuff on these bigger boards, including like you just saw there, playing around jives, even though, if you watch it back slowly, the footwork wasn't the most accurate, but the board is forgiving, so you can do it. There you have it, a few little thoughts and ideas you can digest with your windsurfing as you progress in your career. Thanks as always for joining me. Remember, whack that little subscribe button down at the bottom, and even join me on the Patreon link for more of the walk-along series, which have taken a nice bit of following on my walk-along series just now. The link available in the description of this video. You'll find a link to Patreon, where you can join me for some Q&As if you like, as I take my dogs for a walk most mornings. Thanks again, folks. See you later.